Hi, here I am again. A friend said that the lamp pointing to the camera was not pretty, so I put it on the back then. It was supposed to be artistic. Okay, my next symptom, which I found on this list, as I told you, by Heike Johansmeyer. That was her list. And the symptom for trauma was lack of self-worth. And this was a really hard one. I just show you. This is the picture I made, and it's the only picture that has this small format. I didn't even realize it until now. So all the other ones are double as big. So I think that's symptomatic. I'll talk more about this later. I was just gonna... Why am I doing this? I'm getting closer and closer to why am I doing this? And it is to know myself. Know thyself. I think the Freemasons are actually using that. And they're not all bad people, and they're not all good people. But it's a very interesting, actually, thing. Because I believe they go back to the mystery schools. Very old mystery school knowledge. And if you want to know more about that, there's a lot. But I really like the X series by Dark Journalist. His channel on YouTube is called Dark Journalist, so check that out. It's a lot of information though. So if you know yourself, then you can make peace with yourself. Right? And if you make peace with yourself, you can make peace around you. But I mean, I think, you know, all human beings, all life wants peace, I believe, because that is what is needed for growth. I mean, we know that if there's stress, growth is inhibited. That you see in children that grow up in very stressful situations. They don't grow as much. Or growth gets inhibited. We had a neighbor where I grew up, and she was pretty. I thought she was really beautiful, and she was doing lots of hair curlers and makeup and stuff, and I was very impressed. And I was maybe, I don't know, 6 or so. And so one day I saw that she had funny teeth. I thought her teeth looked, I suddenly saw it, because I used to look at her because I thought she was so pretty. So I asked her, you know, being a child, I just said, you know, your teeth look funny. And then she was maybe, I must guess, but like 35. And she said, yeah, because they're artificial. And I knew artificial teeth from my grandmother's. But so I said, you know, but you're so young. Why do you have artificial teeth? And then she just says, it's nothing, you know. It's just during the war. There was not so much food. No, right. So she was younger than my mother. I think almost 10 years. No, must be less. But she was younger. So she was, I must guess, 4 or 5 something. When that city got bombed, and it got bombed badly, there was 80% of the buildings were down. Because it was an industrial city. And then, of course, the people in the city, they were cut off from supplies. You didn't have potatoes in the garden and stuff. You didn't even have gardens that big. So she must have been hungry a lot to lose her teeth. I mean, the body kind of cuts down on the not so essential hair and teeth, right? First. So peace, this kind of journey which I'm taking here, and thank you for sharing it with me, is a journey into the inner, the family history, to make peace. Because I would like to be a peaceful person that spreads peace around me. Because I believe that is needed. And also it's much more fun, I think. So lack of self-worth comes from, so this is only my stuff, right? I'm not a psychologist, it's how I deal with the topic. So what I found by listening to some wise people who have been dealing with this comes from not getting the right support as a child. And I think I made it pretty obvious in the earlier recordings that where I went into my parents' childhood and how traumatized they were, and what effects that had for me as a child on me. It's not that my parents are evil beings or were kind of having fun, sadists or something. Absolutely not. They really tried very, very, very hard. And I believe extra hard because they had such a need for harmony and stability and peace in themselves. Incredible need. Which also, of course, makes that it was very difficult to disagree with them. They couldn't take, like, what you would call a normal argument. Like somebody just not agreeing, or me. Well, actually also with other people. They had a really hard time. And, yeah, overreacted or shut down in different degrees. So the parents are not capable of taking this drama, whatever it is, me hurting myself or me having problems, getting bullied or something. They can't deal with it, so they don't in some way. Or they do, but it's superficial. It's kind of this, oh, don't worry, dick, you know, don't cry. And as I said, they are not evil people at all. But what it does, and this year in, year out, of course, makes that I get a feeling of that what I feel, my big feelings, and I had enormously big feelings. I remember that I felt sometimes like I would burst. My big feelings were not important. They were not seen, and my parents were my gods. I mean, I thought they knew everything for a long time. So I mean, how do you deal with that? I mean, I'm not at all finished with this. You know, this is not the high top of wisdom. It's my process, right? So how do you deal with it? Well, there we come back to the shamans splintering off. I think that's what I did, and I found this with, I think it was Eva Nitschinga who actually said that the feeling. It's like a splintered mirror, she said. So every time you look into the mirror, you only see parts and pieces. You never see a harmonious picture of yourself. and the mirror, of course, is an inner mirror. You cut off pieces because these big feelings, they are not recognized, they are not mirrored, they are not accepted. They're not said, yeah, that's what people go through in puberty or something. That's what happens, because my parents actually didn't know. I think. At least for my mother, I'm pretty sure she didn't know what happens in puberty and what big feelings. Because for her, it was completely other big feelings. Not puberty. It was survival. So that's how I came to paint it this way. So it's meant like, here's the world, there's life, there's even some glitter. I don't know if that is visible, but I put a little bit of glitter. Like there's this magic, really full world that is there. With, with colors and growth and forests and interesting places and sunshine. And that's me. That is how I felt over many years. Like I'm sitting in the corner, kind of like that, and I'm cut into pieces. And I'm trying to, do something anyway, right? There's a big gap to the feet, and I made that because I used to have the problem that I constantly, oh my god, how do you call that in English? Like my ankles went like this. So I have had several operations on my feet because I broke the ligaments and, So I have really weird accidents with my ankles, and even if I didn't go to the hospital, I mean, it happened all the time. My ankles were really weak. So if you see it like a dream and interpret it like a dream, then it's like not having a standing, not having a fundament, not having a basement to stand on. It's like a constant earthquake kind of situation where you wobble. Yeah, I've made that. It's been a long time since I did that with my feet. And that was a very interesting process, which I will not tell now. But so I was kind of wondering, because for this part of there's lots of stories I could tell. So I was kind of thinking about which story I would tell here to exemplify this. And I decided on this story from my time in Munich when I come to Munich, and it was by accident, total synchronicity. I had never accounted on getting a job there. TV was the most difficult to get in. Everybody wanted to get into TV at that time. I actually didn't. I hadn't made up my mind. And I'd worked at newspapers, I'd worked at the radio, at different places, and it was only TV that was missing. And yes, I was actually right. I was at home because I had torn ligament on my right foot. So I couldn't cycle to university. It was in the summer too. So I was sitting with a cast, and it was really boring. So I watched lots of TV. At that time we didn't have so many channels. So I watched channels, but there were some that I'd never watched, and this was, was it Sky or, I don't know, some weird kind of satellite channel that I'd never watched. And I come across this touristic magazine thing, and then in the back there's an address to a company in Munich. So since I'm anyway sitting there, I'm deciding that I will write applications for a summer internship for some weeks 2 TV stations, and I wrote like 50 applications or something, and also to this company, this little company in Munich. And I don't think if I got any answers, probably not from the big ones, but I did get an answer from them, and they said, just come by. And I start to work there, and they just offered me a job because they really needed somebody to do this. So that's how I got to Munich. And it was pretty wild times. I had no money. Munich is really expensive, so I was kind of moving around every 6 weeks to kind of not permanent homes and sleeping on cold attics and getting pneumonia, and oh my god. Okay, but yeah, maybe that's a good part of it. I mean, I guess I was so dissociated. I just don't like this word, but that's the word they use. That I just, okay, that's what it is, right? So I do it. But anyway, while I was there going into this TV thing, I noticed, that was the first time in my life that I noticed this, that I have such a strange self-image. Because until that point, I'd kind of avoided to look into mirrors too much, basically. And then suddenly they want me on camera. And I said, no. But thus I got aware, and I think I did some tests, and then I remember I had to make an interview, and then I said, you just take my shoulder and the arm. You know, I don't want to be on camera. And then suddenly my cameraman stops the interview and says, what are you doing? I said, what am I doing? I'm doing the interview. And while I'm doing the interview, I can just hear, I could hardly hear what the other person was saying because there was so much noise in my ears. The blood was rushing through my ears and my heart was pounding. And he says, you can't do it like that, Anya. And he says, come here. Excuse me, please. So come here. And he went, and he said, you're shaking with your hand. I said, I'm not shaking with my hand. So he showed me the picture in the camera. And there is my arm. It's only my arm to be seen. And the microphone. And it's going like this. And I didn't even notice it. I didn't see it. Because I was so concentrated to stand up. And I had a paper with my questions. To just speak. And to stand up and to hear something the other person was saying. Could hardly not hear anything. That's how incredibly difficult it was for me. So this actually, doing this here is a total victory for me. And I feel really good that I can actually do it. So, but then I got a little bit more aware. I started to work with it somewhat. I wasn't at all into like spiritual or psychological or something, but I started to use a lot more makeup. I actually got to be a makeup addict. Believe it or not, I think that's why I called this channel makeupfree, because yeah, for I don't know, 6-7 years after that, I wouldn't leave the house without makeup. Full the works, right? Foundation and this 45-minute thing. And that I'm rid of, thank God. But the story I wanted to tell you, which is also, so this is some years later, so I've been working on it, and I've been starting to put on makeup, to wear high heels, and to work with this. It's like, do this woman thing, do this fitting in to that cultural, I don't know what you want to call it, that scene or something. Those images, like trying to be a woman TV journalist in Munich, right? And so the story I want to tell you is how I walked with this guy, with this coworker, down the street. We were going from like one meeting to another. So I was dressed up, like high heels, tight skirt, like some blouse, makeup, earrings, whatever. And so we're walking down the street, and on this walk, I just want to kind of, I had this idea about this film we're talking about. So I'm kind of communicating this idea to him. And I'm really, like when it comes to creative, I can just so bubble. I really enjoy that. So I was like putting out these ideas, and we could do it like this, we could do it like this. And suddenly he stops dead in his tracks and says, looks at me and says, "You don't even notice it, do you?" And I said, "Notice, have you not listened to me?" I got really angry. I mean, it's like, didn't you listen? Didn't you even listen? Here I'm having the greatest idea and you don't even listen. And he says, "You don't even notice it, do you?" And I said, "Notice what?" And he says, "How people look at you." And I said, "People look at me." And I was like, what? You know, do I have something on my face? I immediately think negative, of course. And I said, no, what is something wrong? And he says, "What do you mean wrong?" And he actually, he used an actress. He said, "Oh my God, I feel like I'm walking through the streets with," and it was like an actress I wasn't so fond of. Some dark-haired, not Marilyn Monroe, but this kind of, I don't remember. That kind of type actress. And I said, "Come on, you're kidding. I mean, what is this bullshit you're giving me?" I was really upset because I'm having this brilliant idea. And he talks about film stars. You know, it's like, what? And he says, people actually stop and turn around. Men have stopped to look after us, to look at you. And now this sounds like bragging, but it is actually what happened. So I used to be pretty kind of, I don't know. I've been told that. Now the clue of this story is that I was completely incapable of enjoying that. Totally. I remember I go to parties, I suffer my whole time. I hated parties. Hated it. I mean, that kind, where you have to dress up. And then later I get told, "Oh, you looked so gorgeous, you looked so great, oh my God." And I also notice that I get a lot of attention, but getting at the party, but getting a lot of attention would just make me more insecure. You know, want me to leave even more. Just get me out of here. I mean, this. So that's the story that I kind of found, which I think exemplifies this best. So the way that I am seen, and the way that I perceive myself, is two totally different things, and I cannot get it together. Maybe that's now I just have the idea that's the opposite. That's just turning around the thing I told about, the myth, where the myth is the like positive thing, and reality is not so good. Like the myth is, I'm a great business person, and reality is, I have tons of bills that need to get paid, and I'm running out of money, which is actually not my myth. But just as an example. And here's like the other way around, so myth and reality. And in this case, it's like, it's also like a myth, isn't it? Like, I'm worthless. What I need doesn't count. What I want doesn't count. Except for when I have ideas for films. That's probably why I loved it so much. Because it was like, whoa, I have a window. I have a window. And I'm being appreciated. And reality was a different one. I mean, I see myself like this, but the outside world saw me differently. I always felt fat. I always felt ugly. I was never satisfied, even after the 45 minutes, or make it 1.5 hours sometimes, with the nails and the, long red nails, real ones. And the shit, all this stuff. Now I say stuff. I have nothing against it. I think it's wonderful when other people dress up. I can appreciate that. It's not like I want to put everybody down who likes to dress up. Absolutely not. But for me, it was like it was a drug addiction. It was no fun. And I could not appreciate myself. So however much I did, it just made it hardly better. But I knew just over mind, I knew I've done it all. And of course, what comes then? Oh my God, terrible. What comes? I compare myself. This woman thing, right? About constantly checking, am I more pretty than she? Her shoes fit better to the dress than mine. Her color, whatever, nail polish color is perfect to her lipstick. And mine is not. And this constant comparison, that is so terrible. And that's a form of war, isn't it? Putting each other down. This terrible behavior. And I would argue, no matter what people look, I mean, remember, Marilyn Monroe killed herself because she thought she was ugly. The whole world thinks she's the most beautiful thing there is, and she kills herself because she perceives herself ugly. I rest my case, right? And I mean, either you do it like this, sitting in the corner, feeling like shit, just pretending to stand at the party in the glitter world. You pretend, you play a role, but you really feel like this. Or you take your inner Kalashnikov and start shooting at other women, mowing them down. And I've seen that happen more than once. A lot. And I could never understand why. Why? When she looks great, why does she have to, spit at people? Why are they doing this, behind the back, this women fight? Well, I call it women fight. That's probably not politically correct, but I've seen this a lot more. Men more kind of punch each other, right? Right in the face. Women do it like around 5 corners, kind of this super billiard way. To be honest, I prefer men's. I'd rather get punched in the face. If I have to, I don't want any of it. But if I have to choose, I'd rather have a raging bull than a Scorpio. I don't know. I feel more safe. Probably because I grew up with one. I cannot play this game. The Scorpio game. So, that's not fair mode against Scorpions. I don't think it is. I cannot think of anything in nature which would make a good comparison here. Yeah, so but anyway, this is how I reacted for many, 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 many years. And that is, I still had that when I came from Munich back to my hometown. But when I woke up from the blowing the fuse and kind of went back into life, slowly trying to find my way in this new life, because it was really like a new life, I just stopped trying so hard. On the one hand, Munich is so fancy, and my hometown is not. So it was kind of easy. You just didn't, it was much easier. There was not this tralala, she, film studio, kind of whatever, fancy pub stuff. It just basically doesn't, well, a little bit, but not much. It's easy avoidable. And I still had my makeup addiction in the beginning, but I kind of stepped out of it. Slowly. Yeah. I could let it go. Then I started to do lots of walks in the forest. I was living close to a very nice forest. So I walked and walked and walked, tried to do that a lot. And I was starting to read about American Indians. The medicine woman, all of them. And and the cells, Avalon came out at that time. The Mists of Avalon. So kind of trying to orient myself to something more closer to nature. Slowly. And my breakthrough, I think, was actually before I came here. That was before I met my husband, 2 years before. So in this time, I'm having a very nice apartment, and everything looks great from the outside. And I'm very good at making it look that way. But inside, I'm searching, because I had given up the career, as I told you, and all that. So what then? I mean, I'm just not the person. Never was the person who can just live her little life and make her little films and pay her bills and make some nice cooking and be satisfied. All that I can do, but I'm not satisfied. I've always looked for the meaning of life. What is the meaning of life? Already as a small kid. What is death? I asked my mother. Stuff. Of course she couldn't answer. What happens after death? I asked her. And she told me. And she was completely shocked at the question, because she's pretty scared of death. But that I didn't realize, of course. I was really little. And then she told me that when you die, you go to God, who is loving, and you sit on a cloud with the angels and sing. I was little. She was giving me that, and I said okay, because of course I never thought my mother would lie to me, which of course I don't think she thinks she did. So I'm not saying she lied. She gave me a kid answer, right? So I remember this. And I walked with this for 2 weeks, something. I mean, for me it was a long time. I really mulled it over. And it goes, and I go to kindergarten, and this goes and goes and goes. And then one day, I come back to her, and I said, you know what you told me happened after death? And my mother, oh no, now she goes again. I said, you know what? Something must be wrong with that. because that would be incredibly boring. I think that was a good reasoning there. So, I always looked for the meaning of life. And my breakthrough to start to really actively turn away from the explanations and the directions that society and culture gives, and looking back at nature, me in nature, me as part as nature, in different, many different forms. That was when, so that must have been 1996. I felt like I had started some, I had started some connecting to spirituality in different ways, very carefully, because I always felt very, I felt I should be very careful with the New Age scene, and I was. And now today I consider myself lucky. That was just instinct. And but I had started to kind of speak to something. I called it angels. To speak aloud sometimes. I prayed a lot also as a child, and then now I didn't. Yeah, but I spoke. So one day I'm so frustrated, and I come home and I bang the door and I scream at the angels. And I was living by myself, and say, "This summer, now I've had it. Now I need some real development. And this summer I want to take a trip. I want to go somewhere where I meet interesting people and I actually develop, which actually gives me some impulses to make me grow." And in that second, I kid you not, I hear a big voice, as if I was like standing in the Cologne Cathedral and some opera bass was saying, "Isotera." It was so shocking. It was really shocking. I was like, what? Isotera? What is that? What is that? No more. Nothing more. So I thought, but I did hear it. I heard something. It said Isotera. Now I didn't like this, I said, New Age scene, which called itself esoteric, very much. So I didn't like the word. But I said, okay, I heard it, and it was real, it was an answer. So, okay, what could this be? What could this be? And I thought, it sounds like a magazine. Sounds like the title of a magazine. So I took my bicycle, went to a pretty good magazine store that we actually had in that little town. And I said, "Have you ever heard of a magazine called Esotera?" And he says, yeah. "But we don't have it in stock. Would you like me to order it for you?" And I'm just like, yes. So it took 2 days. I get the magazine, I pick it up, and it says on the title, the 500 best places to spend your vacation this summer. So, like, kind of, wow, direct. So I start reading it. Oh, and there was like these little announce things where people could advertise in the back. So I start reading those. I start the beginning and I start reading them. And it's all like really expensive, super expensive, like this super luxury hotel with guru or like beach vacation in Gran Canaria and learning about crystals. And yeah, I basically, whoever wants to do all that, I have no idea what they were, but for me it was nothing. And I get more and more upset with the angels because they told me to read this stuff. So I get so upset that I take this magazine and throw it into a corner. I just gotta check if the tape is still going. Uh-oh. What is this? Still going. Okay, sorry. I throw the magazine into a corner and I sit there and I'm steaming. And then I think, wait, no. You cannot have had it wrong. You hear a word, you have the idea it's a magazine, you go there, it is a magazine, and the magazine says, you know, the 500 best ways to spend. There must be. So I sit there and I have another intuition, and the intuition says, don't start from the beginning, start from the back. It's like, what, start from the back? So I take the magazine from the corner, put it on the table and open it in the back, the last page, and see it immediately. Immediately, I just saw one advertisement. 2 sentences this big. And it said, do you want to... No. Oh my God, this is so long ago. Something like, go with the river. Canoeing in Canada. And a telephone number. And it was in Hanover, not so far away. So I called the number, and the woman who answers says, oh, that's too bad, that's my husband, and he has just left the house, and he's going to be gone for the weekend, but I will tell him to call you on Monday. And half an hour later he calls, because he had already left the house, and then he had the feeling he had forgotten something. So he came back home, and his wife says, you know what, you just got a call on your advertisement. And he calls me and we speak for 2 hours and I book the trip. And so I actually went canoeing. I entered a canoe for the first time in my life in the north of Canada. Whitehorse, Alaska, and up there. And I was canoeing for 13 days, I think. And it rained most days. So it was, and nothing, right? No, one time we came upon an old kind of hut that somebody had built who was not living there anymore, which we could use. Otherwise it was like tents and fire and washing your hair with water that you made hot over a campfire, and in that and then paddling, that made me a lot more whole. A lot more. That gave me a new mirror, maybe you could say. If the old picture was a broken mirror, which wasn't kind of, I mean, I'm not telling you you know, like a, I don't know, fairy tale story, and then everything was like, no, you know, so otherwise I wouldn't be working, right? This is 25 years ago, so I'm still working, but that was a really big step to really go into nature, to really do it, to no shower, no warm kitchen, freezing wet. But still, I mean, we had brought a lot of food, and I mean, we weren't like hunting or hungry, you know, no, we were not hunting. Fishing though, and there many wonderful things happened. Connecting to nature, and also feeling connected to the Native Americans, the native people that yeah, I have a soul connection to them somehow, and I cannot tell you which tribe, but I felt incredibly connected, and I got information to which turned out to be from that part of me, which turned out to be true. like when the salmon would come, and so, I mean, I, of course, city girl Anya has no idea about salmon, and especially not in Canada. But yeah, it worked. Or it worked. I wasn't doing any tests, it just happened. So that was my first step into reality. Into reality. Because what is reality? It's an earth, it's a planet, right? It's the nature. The body is made from all elements, somehow. Is the DNA is related to the animals. I mean, you know, it's like mita kunyasim, all my relations. Of course we are related, in a way. We're not something else. We don't have screws to put us together. And I personally don't want any. Yeah. So that's when I started to leave this dark corner somehow, slowly, and move into the world, somehow, the real world, the real stuff, and that I'm still doing. Like now, we haven't had water in this house for 2 weeks. And that doesn't even seem so terrible. I mean, the pipe broke. We had our own well with the neighbors, and there's somewhere the pipe is broken, and we cannot find it because it's like really old, and we don't know where it goes. So they've been digging and digging and digging, and now today we just found a solution. So now we're gonna have water soon. But it was a very interesting time of not having water. So there's no shower. Of course, washing machine was a big problem, but of course I have friends, so I'm taking the wash and I'm driving it, and I'm allowed to wash it at a friend's place, and then of course we can shower there, and I have a rainwater that I do the dishes with, and the cleaning and stuff. That, yeah, it was interesting. I think. I don't know, 15 years ago, of course, I had small kids, then you need a lot more water, but I would have had a harder time. So I think this is it, I think, for now. I will tell you what the balance was. So the thing I use is called psyche. So like in psyche, PSYCH. Also, then there's a minus and a K, and the K is for kinesiology, because or whatever, you know what I mean. Because you test it, and I put a link in some description of one video. But there's lots on the internet about this method, and we found it over listening to Bruce Lipton, who I can also very much recommend if you try to understand nature and psyche. Also the innate, this how do the cells react, the cells listen, is what he found. Very interesting stuff. And then, yeah, so the sentence I put on the new sentence I put on my subconscious when I had worked with this is, I am a very valuable part of life. I'm a very valuable part of life. As is everybody else, obviously. It must be so. There's no other way. And if you think everybody, that's philosophically quite interesting, isn't it? Everybody. Everybody. Interesting, isn't it? Even the ones we despise must be so. They wouldn't be here otherwise. This is This is a very interesting philosophical discussion, which I will not have now. So I hope I made this somewhat. Lack of self-worth. Yes. Finished. Thank you very much for listening.